What happens if you take evolution simulation game The Sapling, add a basic alga and aquatic animal, turn on random mutations and stream it for 31 days for the community to follow? I documented what happened in short videos on various platforms and had them narrated by professional nature documentary maker Leo Richards, known from Natural World Facts. We saw loads of cool stuff, like seeds hitchhiking.
Let me do this bit. Seeds hitchhiking to new shores in the fur of aquatic animals. A mass extinction caused by a meteorite, allowing fungi and fungus eaters to dominate, and an ice age, with sap feeders storing food in a giant storage organ.
Interestingly, every time I posted a short, people asked me to combine them into one longer video. This is that video, but because this community deserves nothing but the best, I've added lots of extra facts and footage as well. So sit back and relax to see how we got from this creature on day 1 to this one 31 days of simulated evolution later.
This is Rite 1b, a planet that might be silent now, but soon its lands and oceans will stir with simulated life. It has 4 main continents, all named by followers on Instagram and TikTok after something or someone important to the simulation. Chardar is the largest and mostly flat, but with vast regions of extreme heat. Attenbria has a milder climate, thanks to the mountains lining its southern edge, and is connected to Chardar by a shallow strait in the north. Laridion and Spora are smaller and more remote, with Laridion hosting the coldest area on the planet, snow-covered year-round. As decided by the followers, there is one colder season, bringing snowfall to various other regions. The first life on Rite 1b erupted with this alga and this animal, both designed by followers. The first notable innovation we see is algae abandoning its grip on the sea floor, trading the security of the seabed for the freedom of the surface. Drifting atop the waves, they bask in sunlight, but at a cost. As jaws have not evolved yet, the planet's early animals simply swim around, mouths agape, swallowing whatever drifts in their path. Over time, the shifting carpets of floating algae end up tracing the range of the animals, growing where they cannot reach, like living maps. As the first day progresses, countless animal species rise and fall, each carrying small improvements over the starter species. But none combine their advantages as seamlessly as Dordius. Its sharper eyes spot food from greater distances. Its stronger back fin cuts through rougher currents. And most notably, its jaw, lined with small teeth, brings more energy from every meal. It is this perfect combination that crowns Dordius the king of the seas west of Attenbria. However, large shoals of algae eaters soon become a tempting food source in their own right, paving the way for the first true predators. At one point, nearly 25% of Dordius's eggs were devoured before they could hatch, accounting for half the diet of this new relentless hunter, Tartolorus. East of Attenbria, for most species, Totobator is the main threat. Throughout the first day of the simulation, several coastal alga species had everything required to make the leap to land, causing numerous early contenders. Each time winter arrived, however, their population sizes plummeted, unable to cope with the cold. The few plant species that did survive faced another problem. After a few generations, the soil they grew on ran out of nutrients. To fix this, a third and final player-created organism was added to the simulation. A primitive fungus species, converting dead plant matter into nutrients. Plant species Womlix was at the right place at the right time to take full advantage of this. It specializes for the warmer areas around the equator, where the seasons are barely noticeable. To survive in somewhat cooler areas as well, it has evolved one larger leaf, allowing it to quickly harvest sunlight and reproduce before the cold can claim it. With the emergence of land plants on the continent of Chardar, we slowly see the first alien land ecosystem in our evolution simulation come to life. As decided by the followers on Instagram and TikTok, the starlight reaching the soils on the planet Right 1b spans the full spectrum of colour. To prevent overheating, the plants reflect most of it, painting themselves in pale pinks or even pure whites. At dusk, it seems as if the grasslands of Right 1b glow. Most areas on the planet receive plenty of rainfall, which perhaps surprisingly can be seen clearest in the fungi. Nearly all successful fungus species have evolved to be cup fungi, who launch their spores into the air when water droplets hit the cup. As the second day begins, a child species of Totobator emerges with compound eyes, dramatically expanding its field of view, and thus its ability to locate food. Because of this, its descendants are able to quickly sweep across every available niche, replacing the species that came before. They reproduce so quickly, in fact, that some are forced to explore beyond their familiar waters. And their next stop is, inevitably, land. It happens in two places nearly simultaneously: Vantomium on southern Chardar, and Unlicus on northern Atembria. To the viewers, this might have seemed an insignificant, primitive creature, but we're actually looking at the mother of all land animals on Right 1b. Within just a few generations, we see the legs evolve to move under the body, granting greater speed and the ability to reach food more quickly. This animal, named Madeiras, managed to cross the strait to settle the continent of Chardar as well. It is, however, not well adapted for the warm equatorial region here, and it often succumbs to overheating. The solution to this problem gives rise to a trait that will shape nearly all future land life on Right 1b: long legs, providing their owner unparalleled speed. Whenever these animals wander into an area that is too hot, they can quickly get away. This is Umbatops, the most successful species on the second day of the simulation. Several Umbatops have used their speedy legs to cross Chardar's warm belt entirely, establishing a separate population in the south. Over time, this southern population has become even faster by losing its front legs. This new bipedal species that eventually replaced Umbatops entirely is called Borpyrus. Lartitor, named the Cooper chickens by followers on the Twitch chat, are a species of omnivores in our evolution simulation livestream. They originate from the north of the continent of Chardar, where they branched off from and eventually replaced Umbatops. Their distinctive shell, which they develop as adults, shields them from the searing heat of their home continent, greatly expanding their habitat. Combined with their instincts to avoid extreme heat, this adaptation has given them a powerful evolutionary edge. As of the fourth day, Lartitor and their descendants have become the dominant clade across Chardar and Atembria. Some places are so overrun by these shells that some descendant species are pushed into new niches. Herpylops grazes on the algae in Chardar's lakes, whereas Hysens feeds on the rich abundance of cup fungi scattered across the land. While the continents of Attenbria and Chardar have been full of simulated life since the day the livestream started, Spora and Laridion have remained largely empty, apart from the occasional aquatic animal that accidentally ended up here, and the lone fungus that feasts on the detritus they left behind. That changed on the 5th day, when a plant species named Milia found its way to Spora. Milia is a cold-hardy plant native to the south coast of Attenbria, and like most plants on the planet, does not have seeds that can be dispersed by wind and water. So how did Milia end up here? As it turns out, their seeds bear tiny hooks that will cling to fur. For most plants, this adaptation offers little advantage, as nearly all animals have evolved shells to cope with the various temperatures. But in between Attenbria and Spora, a clade of aquatic herbivores have lost these shells. If such an animal eats on Attenbrian shores and then dies on the coast of Spora, Milia's seeds can take root. And with all the ingredients for this style of seed dispersal in place, it's only a matter of time before plants with hooked seeds establish themselves on Laridion as well. This leads to the peculiar situation that some plant species, first evolved but eventually outcompeted on Attenbria, are now thriving on Spora and Laridion. With the arrival of life on Spora and Laridion in our evolution simulation, the ecosystem on the planet quickly stabilized with a surprising lack of biodiversity. This balance was shattered on day 7, when a meteorite left an enormous crater in the heart of Chardar. Many plants were killed by either the forest fires raging across the land, by not being adapted to the drier climate that followed, or by the dust cloud that blocked the sun for 100 years. For a brief moment in evolutionary time, it was a major advantage for plants to live in water, beyond the reach of the fires, combined with a long lifespan, as it allowed the plants to survive until the dust settled. Alica, an aquatic plant growing along the shores of Chardar and Attenbria, proved perfectly suited for these decades of darkness. Inland, however, life fared far worse. Instead of plants, most places are now filled by fungal forests. As for fungi, all of this extra dead material has created a feast. Most inland animals, on the other hand, depended on seeds that were suddenly no longer available. An exception is a small clade of fungus-eating animals that so far lived quietly across the southern stretches of Chardar. When disaster came to our evolution simulation, they were suddenly the only animals not without food. This was the beginning of a new, very successful era for them. They quickly spread across the planet, also feeding on seeds and nuts if available. Most species in the clade can reproduce sexually, fertilizing the eggs of other individuals. One striking member of this clade is Lanthiditis, living on the cold island north of Chardar. The unusually large tuft of hair on top of its head and its vivid blue and red colors suggest strong sexual selection. But like its relatives, the animal we're seeing here only fertilizes externally. So what explains the flamboyance? As it turns out, Lanthiditis has a second form. Which form emerges from the egg depends on the surrounding temperature, which in practice means that we see this second one whenever eggs are laid in the warmer waters around the island. And this second form does indeed mate. By popular vote, the evolution simulation entered an ice age on day 14. Vast regions of the planet are now snow-covered year-round, including the towering summit the Twitch chat has named Sir David. For some species, like mountain plant laby, the ice age is a blessing. once confined to Sir David's Peaks. The size of its habitat has now greatly expanded. Most other species, however, are forced to migrate. The fungus eaters, for example, have retreated toward the equator. Previously too hot to support grass, this region now blooms with glowy meadows. Some of the animals have fur, allowing them to occasionally venture into the colder areas, but they will need to return to their grasslands to lay their eggs. In these colder areas, most plants that were previously able to withstand the colder winter temperatures are now killed off each time the cold season arrives. As the warmth returns, plants from the equatorial zone start to repopulate the area, only to be wiped out by the next winter. But in scattered pockets, evolution starts to fight back. Some plants shed their leaves and go dormant. In most places, the giant cup fungi, dependent on raindrops to launch their spores, have been replaced by much smaller fungi that rely on wind or animal touch. Smaller fungi mean less food for the fungus eaters, so we gradually see new feeding strategies emerge. Datopyrus is the first successful land predator on the planet Right 1b, living just above the equator on Chardar. Besides the seeds many other animals also feed on, they use their sharp teeth to scavenge carrion lying around, and what matters most to the other animals they share their habitat with. Datopyrus preys on the young. With no land predators prior to this one, the animals on Chardar are utterly unprepared, so their defenseless offspring now serve as easy meals. But perhaps the most intriguing shift in diet is happening not on Chardar, but on Laridion, where Oncalopalyps emerged on day 15. It still bears a strong resemblance to its fungus-eating ancestors on Chardar. Two key adaptations set it apart. Firstly, it has a beak, specialized not for cracking seeds or tearing flesh, but for piercing plants to extract sap. Relying on sap can be a lifesaver during an ice age, because unlike leaves, sap is always available. If you can find the plants in the first place, that is. This is where the second adaptation comes in. Atop its head, Oncalopalyps carries an impressive organ to store the sap it collects. To maximize storage capacity, this organ swells to enormous proportions as the creature feeds, showcasing the white sap inside. This storage allows Oncalopalyps access to calories even in barren times, making it possible to produce offspring no matter the season. As the Ice Age in our evolution simulation came to an end on day 21, the community voted to have the meltwater raise sea levels slightly. For laridion and spora, this means more shallow water around the coast, turning their shores into a paradise for aquatic plants and the animals that feed on them. Oncalopalyps already had small vestigial limbs, but in its descendants, these have grown into larger paddles, useful for steering through the flooded lowlands. For Rotembria and especially Chardar, the rising sea level has had a much larger impact, creating several new, smaller islands. For these islands too, the main inhabitants descend from an Oncalopalyps, most likely all from a small group of individuals swimming from Laridion. But because of genetic drift, they look notably different here. These animals can easily swim between the various islands, so they form a single gene pool. Most plants, on the other hand, are no longer able to cross water. This isolation, combined with the wildly different climates, gives the flora on each island a unique look. Algae in the evolution simulation can specialize for different ocean depths. Some thrive in the shallows, others in the deep. Surprisingly, on our planet Right 1b, large stretches of ocean where we would expect medium-depth algae are underwater deserts. Why is that? The answer lies in this clade of herbivores that has ruled the oceans for thousands of years. They are powerful swimmers, yet not strong enough to reach the regions where the deep algae typically live. Shallow water algae are within reach for them, but these algae share their habitat with the many aquatic plants that are so successful on Right 1b. Because of these plants' size and abundance, they are often more attractive to the herbivores, leaving the algae relatively undisturbed. But the mid-depths are too deep for plants, yet shallow enough for the herbivores. Every time an alga settles here, it is devoured instantly. On day 25, sap feeder Natilis branched off and gradually became the dominant species all over the Chadar Islands. With the Ice Age now behind us, and heat, not cold, defining survival again, a giant sap storage organ is no longer a significant advantage, so it has shrunk to a barely noticeable bump. Botivilops, native to Attenbria, is the last species in the experiment to evolve a major new innovation. Its sap storage organ has evolved into a cask, a crest filled with blood vessels that helps radiate excess heat. Its enlarged beak, which it mainly uses to eat seeds, also doubles as heat regulator. Thanks to these adaptations, Botivilops can withstand temperatures of over 45 degrees Celsius, allowing it to thrive in the scorching heart of Attenbria. Right 1b is quiet again. Where once there were glowing grasslands and fungal forests, now there is stillness. The simulation has ended. For 31 days, a barren world became a cradle of evolution. Pink forests gleamed under full-spectrum starlight. Fungal towers rose in the dust of extinction. Seeds hitchhiked their way to new lands. Herbivores bottled their own future, and in the frozen shadows of Sir David, life learned to sleep through winter. Every species, every extinction, every adaptation was part of a story we created together. But now the simulation ends. No new life will crawl from the soil. No more species will rise or fall. But while the story for Right 1b might be over, the development of the game will continue.
In fact, it continues next week.